April 1945. The Eastern Front is ablaze. Soviet forces are at the gates of Königsberg, the capital of East Prussia. This city was a symbol of Prussian military might, but now it has become a deadly trap for tens of thousands of German soldiers. The Third Reich is already trembling under the blows of the Allies. Berlin is on the verge of falling, but in Königsberg, the Germans decided to fight to the bitter end. They knew that the Red Army would take no prisoners. Soviet command understands that this battle will not just be a fight for the city, it will be a bloody massacre where no one will surrender. The importance of Königsberg. Königsberg was one of the most fortified cities of Nazi Germany. Its defensive lines were built even before the war. Powerful concrete pillboxes, forts, thick city walls. Along the outskirts, anti-tank ditches, minefields, and barbed wire. The city was defended by 15 large forts constructed in the 19th century. The most famous of them was Fort No. 5, King Frederick William III, surrounded by moats filled with water with walls several meters thick. The German command believed that these fortifications would allow them to defend the city for weeks or perhaps even months, but the Red Army had no intention of waiting. The forces. Soviet command mobilized the Third Belarusian Front under Marshal Alexander Vasilevsky. The assault involved 130,000 soldiers, 5,000 guns and mortars, 500 tanks and self-propelled guns, and 2,000 aircraft. Against them stood 35,000 soldiers of the Wehrmacht and SS units, including the experienced 548th Grenadier Division and the 367th Infantry Division. The Germans bet on the fortresses, the city's ruins, and street fighting. They knew that in close combat, Soviet tanks would lose their advantage. Preparation for the assault. Soviet intelligence reported that the Germans had mined all the main roads and prepared underground ammunition depots right under residential neighborhoods. To break the German defense, Vasilevsky decided to destroy the city with artillery before the assault. Everything was planned down to the second. The first strike was to destroy machine gun nests and artillery positions. The second was to destroy tank ambushes. The third was to suppress those still hiding in shelters. But the assault had to be quick. Soviet command understood that if they gave the Germans time, they would turn Königsberg into a new Stalingrad. The start of the assault. April 6, 1945. At exactly 10 o'clock, 5,000 Soviet guns opened fire simultaneously. This was the most powerful artillery strike of the entire war against Germany. In the first 15 minutes, more than 100,000 shells were fired. They struck German fortifications, turning them into a fiery chaos. Some pillboxes withstood the hits, but the shrapnel and shockwaves killed the crews inside. When the fire stopped, Soviet infantry began the attack. They met fierce resistance. German machine gunners hid in basements and attics, shooting from every window. On some streets, Soviet troops could not advance even 100 meters. The Germans held their ground tightly. The fiercest battles took place at Fort No. 5. It was defended by the 300th Fortress Battalion, and they decided to hold out until the last bullet. Soviet tanks tried to break through, but Wehrmacht sappers had mined even the bodies of the fallen, turning everything into a trap. Königsberg is burning. The Red Army takes the city block by block, but the Germans fight desperately. Fort No. 5 still stands, its defenders refusing to surrender. In some areas, the Germans counterattack, trying to retake lost positions. But by April 8th, Soviet units reach the city center. Will the garrison surrender? Or will Königsberg burn in the fire? What awaits its residents? The assault on Königsberg and capitulation. Königsberg is burning. The Red Army has already broken into the city, but the Germans continue to resist until the end. Fort No. 5 still holds, fierce street battles rage, and Wehrmacht soldiers, cornered, launch counterattacks in the ruins of buildings. Soviet forces are pushing toward the city center, but ahead lies the worst. The hell of urban warfare. Königsberg has become a trap. Every house is a fortress, every basement a stronghold. Soviet tanks enter narrow streets and burn from Faust patron rockets. The Germans shoot from rooftops, windows, and sewer grates. Buildings collapse, burying entire squads. But the Red Army doesn't stop. Commanders make a harsh decision: destroy the buildings along with their defenders. Flamethrowers, grenades, and assault squads are brought into play. The Germans understand this is the end. The battle for Fort No.It. But there is one place where the Germans continue to hold out. It's Fort No. 5. Its walls withstood direct hits from 203mm howitzers, but it still stands. Soviet soldiers storm the entrance. They are met with a hail of gunfire. The first attacks are repelled. The second strike, the soldiers crawl under fire, throwing grenades into the embrasures. The third assault, flamethrowers. Flames pour into the German casemates. The defenders surrender at the last moment when death is inevitable. Fort No. 5 falls. The death of the German garrison. But the fighting continues. The Germans refuse to believe in salvation and fight to the last man. Some Wehrmacht units attempt to break out toward the port, hoping to evacuate by sea. But there are no ships. Konigsberg is cut off. No one is coming to help. The capitulation of the garrison, April 9, 1945. General Otto Laisch understands it's over. He sends out envoys. Soviet commanders issue an ultimatum: either surrender or the city will be turned to ash. On April 9, 1945, at 21:30, General Laisch signs the Act of Capitulation. Königsberg has fallen. What happened after the assault? The city lies in ruins. Thousands of civilians are dead under the rubble. The survivors face an uncertain future. The USSR will relocate them, and the city will become part of the Soviet Union. In 1946, Königsberg will officially disappear from the map. It will be replaced by a new city, Kaliningrad. The Germans lost East Prussia forever. The battle for Königsberg is one of the most brutal in the history of the Eastern Front. Fanatical resistance, fire, ash, blood. But this city has fallen, and with it Hitler's last hopes of holding on to East Prussia. And now the question: was this battle inevitable? Or could the Germans have been saved? Write in the comments what you think could have changed the fate of Königsberg.